The diner was almost empty when I walked in. Just the usual old man hunched over his black coffee and a waitress wiping down the counter. The bell above the door jingled behind me, and for a second, I felt something shift. Like time hesitated. I shook it off and slid into a booth by the window. It was supposed to be a simple detour, just a stretch of road the GPS said would shave off 20 minutes on my way home. But from the moment I turned onto that forgotten highway, things stopped making sense. It started with the static on the radio. Every station I tried played nothing but low whispers, indistinct layered voices that seemed to echo over each other like some kind of chant. I killed the volume and tried not to think about the way the air felt colder inside the car than outside. The gas station I pulled into didn't have a name, just a flickering sign that read, "Ice," and no one at the counter. I pumped $10 in silence, watching the shadows stretch and twist along the pavement, even though the sun was directly overhead. I didn't realize it then, but I was already being watched. About 20 miles down the road, I passed an old motel, the kind that looked abandoned, like the roof might cave in if the wind blew hard enough. I would have ignored it, but something caught my eye, a figure in the window, just standing there, perfectly still. I slowed down, stared, but when I looked again, it was gone. Probably just a curtain, or maybe not. I didn't stop to check. That night, the dream started. I woke up at 2:13 a.m., drenched in sweat, my mouth dry like I'd swallowed sand. I couldn't remember the dream exactly, just flashes. A door slamming shut, a pale face pressed against glass, the sound of nails dragging across wood. But the worst part was the voice, soft, hoarse, and so close to my ear that I could still feel the breath when I sat up. It said one word: return. I laughed it off the next morning. Maybe I was just overtired. Stress, lack of sleep. But the motel sign from the day before kept flashing through my mind. Something about that figure. Something about how still it had been. So I went back. It took me a while to find the place again. The GPS refused to lock on to the location, and the road signs twisted and repeated themselves like a loop. But eventually I saw it. The same crumbling facade, the same cracked neon sign that buzzed faintly in the midday sun. Only this time, the parking lot wasn't empty. There was a single black car parked near the entrance, its windows tinted too dark to see inside. I walked to the front door, not expecting it to open. It did, smoothly, silently. Inside it was colder than outside. Dust hung in the air like it had been disturbed just moments before. The wallpaper peeled in long curling strips, and something about the layout felt off, like the hallways stretched longer than they should, like I was being guided. Room 6. I don't know why, but I stopped in front of it. My hand reached for the knob before I even realized I'd made a decision. When I opened it, the air smelled like burnt paper and something else, something sweet and decayed. The room was empty. Almost. On the bed sat a Polaroid picture. It was me, taken from behind. In the photo, I stood in the motel hallway, staring at room 6. I spun around, heart pounding, but the hallway was empty. No footsteps, no camera shutter, just silence. I left the motel faster than I'd ever moved in my life, but as I pulled away, the black car was gone. That night I didn't sleep, not because of nightmares this time, because of the knocking. It started slow, rhythmic, 3 knocks, then silence. 5 minutes later, 3 more, always 3, always on the window, even though I lived on the 2nd floor. I didn't check. I didn't need to. The next day, I called the county records office to look up the old motel. The woman on the line was silent for a long time before she said, "Sir, that building burned down in 1974. I laughed. "No, I was just there yesterday." More silence. Then, "Sir, you said room 6? My mouth went dry. Yeah, she exhaled shakily. That was where they found the last body. No one's been able to keep that land since. I didn't know what to say. I didn't want to believe her, but I also couldn't explain the photograph still sitting in my glove box, or the handprint that kept appearing on my bathroom mirror every night. Small, child-sized, smudged like it had pressed through condensation that wasn't there. I started digging. Old newspaper articles, message boards, anything I could find. That place had a history of disappearances. People who stopped by and were never seen again. The legend spoke of a little girl who had vanished during a family trip, last seen entering room 6. No body was ever found. Locals said her spirit never left, and now somehow it had followed me. The deeper I got, the more things spiraled. My electronics glitched constantly. Screens flickered, voices played on loop. The same whisper every time. Bring it back. One night I woke up with dirt under my nails and scratches on my forearms, like I'd been digging. But my backyard was untouched. My shoes were clean. Only my hands told the story of where I'd been. That was when I found the key. It sat on my kitchen counter, wrapped in aged paper. Room 6, etched into the brass. I never brought it home. I never touched it. But it was there, and I knew what it meant. She wanted me to return, so I did. I don't remember driving. I barely remember arriving. But I found myself standing in front of that motel again. Only this time it looked brand new, like it had been frozen in time. The lights were on. The sign glowed bright red. And in the window of room 6, she stood waiting. I stepped inside, and the door closed behind me. There was no pain, no sound, just pressure, like diving too deep into water. The last thing I saw was the photograph burning slowly in the corner. Not the one from before. This one was different. This one showed me, sitting on the motel bed, smiling. I woke up at home the next morning, but nothing felt real. My apartment was colder, quieter. Time seemed slower, and my reflection moved just a second too late. I stopped seeing my breath in the mirror. My eyes looked wrong. I tried to live normally again, go to work, pretend everything was fine. But people started avoiding me. Friends stopped calling. One coworker asked if I'd been in an accident, said I looked like I'd lost something. And then the email started. From my own address, subject line, room 6. No message, just attachments, photos, all of me, standing, staring, smiling. The last photo came yesterday. In it, I was sitting at this very desk, typing this story. And behind me was the girl. Her eyes were wide, her mouth was open, and if you look closely, just past my shoulder, you can see the key in her hand. Still labeled room 6. They say you can't outrun what's waiting for you. I think they're right, but maybe, just maybe, she's looking for someone new now. So tell me, have you ever taken a detour you couldn't explain? If you ever see an old motel on an empty stretch of road, no name, no guess, just drive past it, don't stop. And whatever you do, never check into room 6. Story number 2. It was past midnight on a deserted back road when my phone died, and I pulled over to check the map, only to feel breath on my neck. I spun around to find muddy footprints on the seat and a chilling whisper, "Thanks for the ride." My hand shook as I slammed the door and retreated to the trunk light. When I gathered the courage to return, the muddy print had shifted. The footprint now faced the back window. I never believed in ghost stories. Honestly, I thought they were just campfire entertainment or local superstition, meant to scare kids or keep people from wandering too far off into the woods. I liked logic, science, facts. But what happened to me near Hollow Creek flipped everything I thought I knew, completely. It started when I got a job offer in a small rural town. Quiet, peaceful. The kind of place with one grocery store, a diner where everyone knows your name, and a population sign that hadn't changed in 20 years. After the chaos of city life, it sounded like exactly what I needed. So I packed up, rented a cabin at the edge of town, and moved in by the end of summer. The place was rustic, wooden floors, a brick fireplace, and a back deck that looked out over a creek that curved lazily through the woods. The landlord, Mr. Branson, was an odd sort, polite but stiff. Handed me the keys without much fanfare, and only one strange warning as he walked away. Don't go near the woods after dark, especially not the creek. I smiled awkwardly, assuming it was some kind of local joke. I laughed it off. That was my first mistake. The first few nights were uneventful. Mornings were full of bird song, and the afternoons were spent unpacking boxes and walking along the nearby trail. At night, I'd sit on the deck and listen to the sound of the water rushing gently by. It was peaceful, comforting even, but that comfort didn't last long. On the fifth night, I woke up around 2 a.m. to a soft tapping. It was delicate, almost polite. Tap, tap, tap. I sat up in bed and waited, thinking it was a branch or maybe an animal, but it continued. Always 3 taps, a pause, then 3 again. When I finally gathered the courage to peek through the blinds, nothing was there, just the trees swaying in the moonlight. I convinced myself it was the wind, but the next night it happened again, same time, same tapping. But this time I caught movement out of the corner of my eye, just at the tree line. A pale figure, still, watching, gone the moment I blinked. That morning, I walked out to where I thought I'd seen the figure. The grass was wet from dew, but there were footprints, bare, small, leading toward the creek. But they stopped halfway and vanished, as if the person had sunk into the ground or been lifted away. The dream started that same night. I was standing by the water, and a fog hung low over the surface. In the middle of the creek was a woman. I couldn't see her face, but her hair was long and dripping wet. She stood perfectly still. Then she spoke, not with her mouth, but in my head. Come see, come remember. I woke up gasping, my sheets soaked in sweat. The air in the room was freezing, despite it being late summer. I could still hear her whispering, just beneath the sound of the wind. Come remember. I thought I was losing it. I tried to ignore it. I stopped walking near the creek and kept all the windows shut at night. But the tapping didn't stop. It got louder, closer. One night it came from under the floor. Scratch, scratch, tap, like nails dragging on old wood. I knelt down to the floor and pressed my ear against the plank. I could hear something breathing, something wet. I asked the landlord if there were animals under the cabin. Rats, raccoons, anything. He looked at me with an expression I can't forget. Cold. There's nothing under there, he said. Don't go looking where you're not wanted. And he left. I couldn't let it go. I needed answers. So I started asking around. The waitress at the diner, a sweet, middle-aged woman named Martha, hesitated when I mentioned the cabin. When I told her it was near Hollow Creek, her face lost all color. You live out there? She said, almost whispering. She told me about Clara. Back in the 1930s, a young woman named Clara lived in a small house by the creek. She was known to be strange, always alone. Some said she talked to herself. Others claimed she practiced old mountain rituals. People were afraid of her. Then one night, 3 men from town vanished after chasing her into the woods, drunk and angry, claiming she'd bewitched someone's son. Only one returned. He was found a week later, wandering barefoot and raving, screaming that she's under the water now, and her voice won't stop. He never spoke again. The town burned Clara's house to the ground, but her body was never found. Since then, people claim to hear her voice near the creek, luring, whispering, calling. I wanted to believe it was just a story, I really did. But that night, I dreamt again. Only this time, it didn't feel like a dream. I was standing by the creek again, but the air was colder, realer. I could smell the damp earth and hear the water churning. A thick fog crawled in, and then she was there, Clara, closer than before. Her eyes were hollow, her skin bloated like it had been soaked for years. She opened her mouth, far too wide, and I heard the screams of men, echoing, distorted, drowning. I woke up outside, on the grass, the back door wide open. I had no memory of walking out. The next morning I checked the mirror, and there, barely visible, was something etched into the surface. Not written, carved. You remember. I didn't, not yet, but it kept nagging at me. So I went to the town archive, dug into old newspapers, found faded articles, all vague, almost intentionally so. But then I found it, a photograph, dated 1934, a group of townsfolk standing near the creek, and in the corner, Clara. And standing next to her, me, same eyes, same face. I dropped the photo. My heart slammed against my chest. It didn't make sense. But the more I stared, the more I felt it. I had been there. Flashes of memory hit me like thunder. I remembered the creek. I remembered Clara's voice. I remembered turning away, running, while the others, I couldn't breathe. That night, I lit a lantern and went to the creek. I needed to see her. I needed to know. The fog was waiting for me. She appeared slowly, rising from the water like she had never left. "You left me," she said, the water around her bubbling. "I didn't know," I said, tears on my face before I realized I was crying. She smiled, a horrible, twisting thing. "You remember now, that's enough." Then she was gone. When I returned to the cabin, the mirror had changed. The writing was gone, but in its place, my reflection was smiling. But I wasn't. I haven't left since. I tried. Packed bags. Booked a motel. But every time I start the car, the GPS reroutes. Always back to Hollow Creek. Always back home. At night, I hear voices in the water. I see faces pressed against the window. They whisper, "She's waiting for you." She remembers. And sometimes, I think I do too. If you ever find yourself near Hollow Creek, don't stop. Don't listen. And for God's sake, don't answer her voice. Because if you do, you'll remember things that were never yours. And by then, it's already too late.